Okay, everybody, it's time to go back to magical fantasy land. Sometimes in Commander, cards can interact in such a powerful and synergistic way, they can help you achieve infinite power!
Expecto Patronum!
Let's look at some crazy combos that you can achieve a turn 1 win in Commander, and the video starts right now. Special thanks to our Patreon supporters who power our channel. Check out our Patreon for monthly giveaways, exclusive content, and even a starring role in our fan fight series. Link in the description below. Come with me and you'll see a world of turn 1 domination. Hello and welcome to the day. Thank you for spending your time with us. Welcome back to another episode of Jake and Joel Are Magic. I am Joel. Today we're going to look at turn 1 wins in EDH. Some absolutely impossible to achieve, but very fun thought experiment combos. But first, if you would go down there, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It really helps us out. So before you go down there and comment about how impossible this is, I want to tell you I know. When I was putting this video together, I had my Discord run the math, okay, of achieving a specific 7-card hand out of your 99-card deck. The odds of doing this are 1 in about 7,443,515,772.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
It's basically impossible to achieve, but when you do... And honestly, look, you can be in the middle of one of these combos and somebody can go, in response, force of will, and make you go... So just to achieve these turn 1 wins with these combos we're gonna go through, we have to enter a magical fantasy land where Blockbuster never went bankrupt, where The Matrix Reloaded wasn't a confusing mess and kind of ruined the original, where Disney delivered a satisfying conclusion to the Skywalker saga in Star Wars. All that said, let's look at some combos. So our very first combo has to do with Dargo the Shipwrecker. So to set up this combo, we need Dargo the Shipwrecker to be one of our commanders, and we need an opening hand of 7 cards consisting of Lotus Petal, Ornithopter, Kuldotha Rebirth, Ancient Tomb, Mana Vault, Impact Tremors, and Phyrexian Altar. So what we're going to do on our first turn is cast Lotus Petal, cast Ornithopter. We're going to tap Lotus Petal for 1 red mana, sacrificing it. We've got 1 red mana floating. We're going to cast Kuldotha Rebirth. Kuldotha Rebirth has an additional cost to cast it. We got to sacrifice an artifact, so we're going to sacrifice Ornithopter. We're going to put 3 1/1 red goblin creature tokens onto the battlefield. So far we've done a lot to create 3 1/1s. Next up, for land for turn, we're going to cast Ancient Tomb. We're going to tap Ancient Tomb to add 2 mana. We're going to use 1 of those mana to cast Mana Vault, so we've got 1 mana floating. We're going to tap Mana Vault to have 3 more mana into our mana pool, so we've got 4 mana floating total. Now we're going to cast Phyrexian Altar using 3 of those. We've still got 1 mana floating. We're going to sack a goblin to add 1 red mana to our mana pool. All right, then we're going to be able to cast Impact Tremors with the 1 mana we had floating left over and the 1 red that we created with Phyrexian Altar by sacrificing a goblin. Next, we are going to sack these other 2 goblins to add 2 more red mana to our mana pool. That is going to allow us now to cast Dargo the Shipwrecker. Dargo only cost 1 red mana at this point. So far, we have sacrificed Lotus Petal, Ornithopter, and 3 creatures through those 3 1/1 red goblins. So this has been reduced by 10 already. When Dargo enters the battlefield, Impact Tremors is going to deal 1 damage to each opponent. Now we have a loop created, and without any interaction, we're going to be able to infinitely sacrifice Dargo to Phyrexian Altar. That's going to reduce his cost by an additional 2, so it's always going to stay as a 1 red mana cast. Whenever we sacrifice Dargo to Phyrexian Altar, we get to add 1 red mana to our mana pool, and that's the loop. With the 1 red mana we created from sacrificing Dargo, we put Dargo back onto the field. His cost has been reduced by an additional 2 because of his own onboard ability, costing 2 less to cast for each permanent sacrificed or 2 less to cast for each other artifact or creature you've sacrificed this turn. We sacrifice it again. It came into the battlefield. Impact triggers, impact trimmers triggers, and deals a damage to each opponent. Dargo, we sacrifice. We have 1 red mana floating. We cast it. It comes into the battlefield. Impact tremors, deals a damage to each opponent, and we've achieved our infinite loop to win on turn 1. So for this next combo, any commander that is red and green will work, but we do need to draw a hand consisting of 6 specific cards: Ancient Tomb, Lotus Petal, Elvish Spirit Guide, Eureka, Pandemonium, and Seki Season's Guide. So on turn 1, we're going to play Ancient Tomb, we're going to play Lotus Petal, we're going to tap and sack Lotus Petal to add a green mana to our mana pool. We're going to pay the 2 for Ancient Tomb, going down to 38. We're going to exile from our hand Elvish Spirit Guide. Elvish Spirit Guide reads, if it's in your hand, you can remove it from the game to add a green to your mana pool. So we're going to now have that exiled. We'll have 2 green and 2 colorless in our mana pool. With that 2 green and 2 other, we're going to cast Eureka. Now Eureka is going to let us go around the table, and all players taking turns can put a permanent from their hand onto the battlefield until players don't want to put any permanents from their hand onto the battlefield any longer. So for our permanents, we're first going to put onto the battlefield Pandemonium. Pandemonium says whenever a creature comes into play, that creature's controller may have it deal damage equal to its power to target creature or player of their choice. Our next permanent that we're going to drop onto the battlefield is Seki Season's Guide. Seki reads, comes into play with 8 +1/+1 counters on it. If damage would be dealt to it, prevent that damage, remove that many +1/+1 counters from it, and put that many 1/1 colorless spirit creature tokens into play. Then, also you can sacrifice 8 spirits to return Seki from your graveyard to play. When Seki enters the battlefield, we're going to have Pandemonium trigger, and we're going to have that 8 damage that Seki can deal dealt to itself, essentially killing it, okay? That's going to put onto the battlefield 8 spirit tokens. We're going to let these 4 count for the 8, just so I don't have to click 8 times. And when these come into the battlefield, each one through Pandemonium is going to deal a damage to an opponent. All right. Then when we have our 8 spirits on the battlefield, we will have Seki enter the battlefield through its ability. We're going to sacrifice these 8 spirits. All right. Seki enters the battlefield. The 8 damage is dealt to itself, killing itself again. The spirits come into play. The 8 damage from the spirit's power, Pandemonium, that creature's controller may have it deal damage equal to its power to target creature or player of his or her choice, is dealt to an opponent. Those 8 spirits get sacrificed, Seki re-enters the battlefield, and so on and so forth. That is your loop. You just do this until all of your opponents are dead. For this next combo, you need a commander that's going to give you access to at least black and red, and you need an opening hand that looks like this: Swamp, Dark Ritual, Buried Alive, Lotus Petal, and Reanimate. Seasoned players can already see where I'm going with this one, but it goes a little something like this. We play our Swamp, and then we play Dark Ritual to add 3 black mana to our mana pool. That lets us cast Buried Alive. Search your library for up to 3 creature cards, put them into your graveyard, then shuffle your library. We are going to go search for Phyrexian Delver, Kiki-Jiki Mirror Breaker, and Zealous Conscripts. What that is going to allow us to do is then we play Lotus Petal, we tap it, we add 1 black mana to our mana pool, then we cast Reanimate. Put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. You lose life equal to its CMC. We are going to put Phyrexian Delver onto our battlefield under our control. We lose 5 life, go down to 35. It enters the battlefield, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, and we lose life equal to that card's CMC. We're going to return Kiki-Jiki Mirror Breaker. We're going to lose an additional 5 and go down to 30, but we don't care because we're about to perform our loop. Next, we are going to tap Kiki-Jiki Mirror Breaker to copy Phyrexian Delver. That's going to put us a copy of that onto the battlefield, which will then trigger Phyrexian Delver's ability, enters the battlefield, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. We are going to return Zealous Conscripts and lose another 5 life. But we don't care because we're almost there. When Zealous Conscripts enters the battlefield, gain control of target permanent until end of turn. Untap that permanent, it gains haste until end of turn. Spoiler alert, we're going to gain control of Kiki-Jiki and untap it. Then we tap Kiki-Jiki, copying Zealous Conscripts. We create a token of Zealous Conscripts. That's another 3/3 right there. When it enters the battlefield, we untap Kiki-Jiki, then we tap Kiki-Jiki. We create a copy of Zealous Conscripts. That's another 3/3 right there. We untap. They all have haste because they're copies of Zealous Conscripts. We create an infinite amount of 3/3 tokens, and we swing at all our opponents who are now not our friends anymore. Next up, this combo requires Zirda the Dawnwaker as your commander, and an opening hand that consists of Jeweled Lotus, Mountain, Mana Vault, Basalt Monolith, Lotus Petal, and Fireball. We are going to start by casting Jeweled Lotus, tapping it, sacking it for 3 mana to play Zirda the Dawnwaker. Then we are going to play Mountain. We are going to tap that Mountain to play Mana Vault. We will tap that Mana Vault for 3 to play Basalt Monolith. Now we have achieved an infinite mana combo with Zirda and Basalt Monolith. Zirda says, abilities you activate that aren't mana abilities cost 2 less to activate. And Basalt Monolith can tap to add 3, and you can pay 3 to untap Basalt Monolith. However, since it's 2 less now, it only costs 1 mana to untap Basalt Monolith, so you tap it for 3, untap it for 1, you net 2 mana. Tap it for 3, untap it for 1, you're netting 2 mana, and you're just looping that an infinite amount of times. Then you have Lotus Petal, you tap it, sack it to add 1 red mana to your mana pool, and you cast Fireball. 1 red mana, X, it deals X damage divided evenly, rounded down among any number of target creatures and or players. Fireball costs 1 more to cast for each target beyond the first. So 1 red mana to cast the spell itself, 2 more mana for it to target your second and third opponents, and then an infinite amount of mana to kill all 3 opponents. For the final combo, you need Niv-Mizzet Parun as your commander, and you need an opening hand of 7 cards consisting of Mountain, Simian Spirit Guide, Desperate Ritual, Jeweled Lotus, Mox Amber, Curiosity, and Gitaxian Probe. So on turn 1, we want to start by casting Mountain. We want to exile Simian Spirit Guide from our hand to add 1 red mana to our mana pool. We want to cast Desperate Ritual with the 1 red that we have floating and the 1 red that we have on the battlefield, so we have 3 red in our mana pool. We want to cast Jeweled Lotus, tap it, and sack it to add 3 blue to our mana pool, and we've got our very own turn 1 Niv-Mizzet Parun. Next, we're going to cast Mox Amber for 0 and tap it for 1 blue since we have a legendary creature with blue in its casting cost on the battlefield. We're going to use that 1 blue to cast Curiosity targeting Niv-Mizzet Parun. Now we have a near infinite loop achieved. Niv-Mizzet says whenever you draw a card, it deals a damage to any target, and Curiosity says whenever the enchanted creature deals damage to an opponent, you may draw a card, triggering Niv-Mizzet. When you draw a card, you deal a damage, and so forth, almost infinitely. Now we're concerned with 2 things. We need to start the loop, and we do have a finite amount of cards in our library that don't equal the 120 damage that we need to deal to kill all 3 opponents. To start the loop, we need Niv-Mizzet to either deal a damage to an opponent or we draw a card. So for just 2 life, we can cast Gitaxian Probe, look at target player's hand, and draw a card. We'll draw whatever card off the Gitaxian Probe, and that's going to start the loop. Niv-Mizzet deals a damage, we draw a card. Niv-Mizzet, we draw a card, Niv-Mizzet deals a damage. Niv-Mizzet deals damage, we draw a card, and so forth. As we're drawing, we're going to draw our entire library all the way down to its final card. So we will have 1 card left in our library, but we don't want to draw that last one and then 1 more, or we'll lose the game. So to reset and get enough cards in our library so that we can continue the loop and get all of the damage onto the opponents that we need to achieve the victory, we're going to cast Lion's Eye Diamond. For 0, sack Lion's Eye Diamond, discard your hand, add 3 mana of any 1 color to your mana pool. So we have our entire library minus 1 card and the cards that we've used for this combo in our hand currently. One of which is Echo of Eons. That flashback is what we care about here. 1 blue, 2 other. Each player shuffles their hand and graveyard into their library, then draws 7 cards. So we cast Lion's Eye Diamond, we tap it, we sack it for 3 blue mana, we discard Echo of Eons and every other card that was in our hand. Then with that 3 blue mana, we flash back Echo of Eons. Each player shuffles their hand and their graveyard into their library and then draws 7 cards. That card draw re-triggers our ability. We have a full library of cards and we're able to ping our opponents down the rest of the way. That's 5 ridiculous ways to win on turn 1 in EDH. Let's close the book. First of all, thank you so much to our Discord. Our Discord helped me so much while I was making this video. I would take an idea to them, they would come back with a better idea. They help me with the math so that I can tell you yet again, the odds of doing this are 1 in 7,443,515,772, give or take. Let me know in the comments if you like this series, and if you have a ridiculous combo to win on turn 1 in EDH, leave that in the comments below as well, and you might see it in another upcoming turn 1 win EDH video. Other than that, I had a great time going to Magical Fantasyland with y'all. I'll catch you next time.